Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Young at Heart. I'm Father James DiLuzio with the Paulist Fathers here in the basement of the Paulist Fathers Rectory, ready to share with you part 2 of Puss and Boots with these beautiful illustrations by Fred Marcelinho of the story of Puss in Boots by James Perrault. I love saying that, don't you? James Perrault. But the English translation is by Malcolm Arthur. We're going to pick up right where we left off yesterday, which was just the beginning of the story. And if you didn't catch it, the gist of it all is that a man died and left his only 3 possessions to his 3 sons. To the oldest, he left his flour mill. To the middle son, he left a donkey. And to the third, the youngest, he only had the family cat. Now, the youngest was quite desperate, and he thought, well, what could he do? Should he kill the cat and have it for his last and final meal and make a muff out of the fur? But the cat, of course, overhearing the master deliberating about these things, had a much better idea. Let's continue. The cat, who had been listening to his young master while pretending not to, said with a serious, sympathetic look, "Don't worry, master. Just get me a sack and a pair of boots to carry in the brambles, and you'll see that you have come out not as badly as you thought." The cat's master was not exactly convinced, but then he remembered he had seen the cat do some very clever things, such as catching rats and mice by hanging from his paws or hiding in the flour bin and pretending he was dead. So the young man said to himself, "Oh, well, why not give it a try?" When Puss had got what he asked for, he pulled on his fine boots, threw the sack over his shoulder, and holding the strings between his forepaws, went out to a warren where there were lots of rabbits. So I want to share with you the wonderful illustration. Let me see if I can get it right there in front of the camera. And you can see Puss putting on his boots and the shoemaker marveling at how dexterous the cat is, or dexterous, or rather that the cat had lots of dexterity. And there's our young master looking on, a bit puzzled. Okay. So, Puss put bran and sow thistle into the sack, and he waited for some young rabbit who hadn't caught on to the ruses of this world to poke his nose into the sack. No sooner had Puss settled himself than a harebrained rabbit walked right into the sack. Puss pulled the strings tight and killed the rabbit without mercy or compassion. And here we go. See the poor rabbit, harebrained, I should say, or so did our translator, a harebrained young rabbit. Proud of his kill, I guess as any cat would be, right? They do like to go chasing mice and rabbits and bringing them home for dinner. Puss went straight out to the royal palace of the king, and he asked to see the king. And here we have Puss there at the door of the castle. Now, there's the steward. And what do you think? If you had a cat come up to your door wearing boots and a sack thrown over his shoulder, you'd probably let him in too. Would you? They showed him into the Majesty's apartments, where the Puss bowed low and said, "Sire, I have brought you a wild rabbit from the Marquis of Carabas," which is the name he had given to his master. "For the Marquis has bidden me to offer you this rabbit with his compliments." "Tell your master," said the king, "that his gift has given me great pleasure, and I thank him kindly." The next time Puss went out with his sack, he hid in a wheat field. And when 2 partridges walked into his sack, he pulled the strings tight and caught them both. The king accepted the 2 partridges gladly and told his servants to reward the cat for his pains. For 2 or 3 months, Puss went on bringing the king his capture from his master's preserves. Now, of course, we know his master has no preserves, but the ruse is working, and the king is becoming curious about who this Marquis of Carabas might be. But here we have the king sitting in his chair, and as we go further to the ground, we see the rabbit laid at his feet. And we know in times long ago, people liked to have rabbits too. And there is our clever cat in his boots, bowing low and presenting the rabbit to the king. Now, some illustrators for Puss in Boots like to put a little jacket on him and have him wear a hat, but Fred Marcelinho prefers to give us a really ordinary-looking cat, but some astounding, don't you think, fascinating original boots. So here we go, and we'll bring this section of our time together to a close. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you're home with others, try to figure out what's going to come next. See how much of this Puss in Boots you can remember. Or if you have a different edition, that writer or translator may have added some additional adventures for Puss in Boots. But this one goes back to the original by James Perrault. I'll close with a cute little nursery rhyme. You probably have heard this before as well, and I've always liked it. It's a sing-song one. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dear, dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Johnny's too late at the fair. He promised to bring you a bunch of blue ribbons. He promised to bring you a bunch of blue ribbons. He promised to bring you a bunch of blue ribbons to tie up your bunny brown hair. I wish I had bunny brown hair, but maybe you're fortunate enough to have some, or whatever color it may be. I want to thank you for joining me this evening. It is late. I had a long day. Did you have a long day too? Well, hopefully you found this story refreshing, for I find there's nothing better from a long day when we're tired is to pick up a book, especially a children's book, and just have some fun with it. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dear, dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Johnny's too late at the fair. Good night, everyone. Stay healthy. Keep safe. God bless. Good night.